There's a touch of madness around here.
Hi everybody, this is a video that I've thought about doing a few times, but wasn't sure whether there would be much interest, but I'm going to risk it. And also I didn't know how many people to choose, what kind of books to choose, but I'm just going to go for it because I'm in the mood to do this video. It's also a video that will tie in quite nicely to the Horror Mayhem challenge that's been going around some of the booktubers, and it's not horror necessarily, but it's creepy, gothic, dark, macabre, eerie, that kind of thing. So this is about illustrators that have that kind of feel to them, and two of them are very famous. One of them is massively underrated and not that famous, I don't think, but possibly famous in America. And the other guy, the fourth guy I'm going to mention, is extremely famous, but not necessarily for his artwork. Don't know. So yeah, 4 illustrators, artists, and storytellers. Creepy, eerie, gothic, macabre illustrators. I don't know what to call this video, but let's start with the big man, Edward Gorey. So this is a lovely book, and this is the follow-up book, which is a compendium of his stories. So they tend to come in small hardback comic strip type format, his books. And this book is a collection called Gory, and it's a collection of 15 of those books that have been put together in this A4 collection, and it's fantastic. And I do have a couple of those hardback books, but they're in the loft, and I thought I might as well show you the artwork from these books. So I bought this, but I also bought, I've had these books a while, I also bought these follow-up at the same time. I think there's a third one as well. He didn't do that many books from what I can gather, but these are really good collections. So, who was this man? So Edward Gorey was an illustrator who was born in 1925 in Chicago, lived all his life in America, and often his artwork has a Victorian or an Edwardian setting, so a lot of people think he was British, but he was American, and he just loved that kind of style. And he had a very distinctive black and white pen and ink style of drawing, which has had a huge influence on lots of other artists, but it's really, really distinctive, which you'll see in a minute. You'll probably recognise his style if you don't know him already. And his stories were very unsettling, very odd, quite surreal, quite downbeat, and it kind of worked with the illustrative style. So I love how he draws, really love how he draws, but I also love his sensibility and the way he thinks, and there's a kind of a thread running through all these people. But I had to start with Edward Gorey because I think he kicks off these kind of things. It's interesting, when he first started in 1953, he was actually doing book covers and illustrations for books like Dracula and War of the Worlds. So he was working in speculative fiction before he started doing his own. Although he did do his own books in the early 50s as well. So the first book was the Unstrung Harp, the first book he released that he'd written himself, which is very typical of what he does. And these macabre stories have just sort of remained kind of unique and not dated at all through the ages, because they are kind of nonsensical. He calls his own work literary nonsense, and I think it's because of that surrealism that they don't date. So let's have a look at some of the things. I love these things. These are when I talk about one of the books in a minute, you'll see a real influence on one of the books I'm going to talk about. So this is a series of very short phrases that tell these unhappy stories. So A is for Amy, fell down the stairs. B is for Basil, assaulted by bears. C is for Clara, who wasted away. C is for Clara, who wasted away. E is for Ernest, who choked on a peach. And that's kind of where you're going with this story. I mean, some of it is gruesome. K is for Kate, who was struck with an axe. But I think there's something beautiful about the artwork, even though clearly it's not beautiful. And you get these, a lot of it rhymes as well. The Doubtful Guest, I'm a big fan of the Doubtful Guest. And it's this creature that becomes part of their lives. How cool are these drawings? I love this phrase. It came 17 years ago, and to this day, it has shown no intention of going away. It's just, there's something kind of beautiful about the otherworldliness of it, but also the nostalgic aspect of the drawing style, I think. So that's the first book. And I do need to get the others. I can't read this out and see that because it's backwards, but you can see this here. This is the kind of storytelling we're talking about. Sometimes you could tell it's him, but it's just slightly different, slightly more sketchy, which is quite cool. But I'd say that's quite typical of a series of panels by Edward Gorey. So sometimes not a lot happening in the panel, and sometimes that classic Edward Gorey figure. So yeah, really interesting style that just never gets boring. It's so good. The Beastly Baby is a good one as well, and that's a very small, short story about a sort of monster type baby. So Edward Gorey. I'll go directly onto an illustrator who's really influenced by him. You can see his influence in how he draws, and this is the guy that I said is immensely famous, but may not be that famous for his artwork, and that is Tim Burton. So this is a copy of The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy, which I've had since it came out. So it came out in 1997, and there's been other editions of it since, and I might get it again because it's been in the loft of that. The cover's a little bit knackered now, so I might get it again. But The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy has these lovely drawings that are so typical of him, and they're all illustrating poems he wrote. So that's Robot Boy. It's distinctively Tim Burton, so I don't think they necessarily look exactly like Edward Gorey's designs, but you can see the influence, I think. And this is very clearly a book that's all about design. So here you've got the staring girl, and each page develops the story with a very minimal amount of words, which is how Edward Gorey told his stories as well. So yeah, that's one of the aspects of Tim Burton's poems and his illustrations for the poems in here that you can link back to Edward Gorey. There's also that Kafkaesque surrealism as well, like the girl who turned into a bed, and here she turns into a bed. There's also that Kafkaesque surrealism as well, like the girl who turned into a bed, and here she turns into a bed. Roy, the toxic boy. they're not very pleasant and happy-go-lucky poems, these poems. Clearly, Roy, the toxic boy, is not having a good time. And I don't know, I think, I mean, you've got, look at Melonhead, that looks so Jack Skellington, doesn't it? Melonhead. You can see that whole drawing style. Which brings me to Jack Skellington. Oh, this book is so heavy. I said in a previous video I was going to open this because it's about time. I've had this I've had this book for such a long time. When it came out, basically, so I'm going to have a look to see when it came out once I've opened it. Wow, it feels lovely. It's got this sort of velvet texture. So if I take this front bit off, clearly his illustrations and sketches. I don't know if you know the background of Tim Burton's career, but he started off working for Disney, but they didn't like what he did in the illustrator's office, so he drew designs for the Black Cauldron, but they didn't use any of them because they said they were too creepy. If someone asked me who drew this, I'd know it was Tim Burton. So he's very distinctive. And after the Disney Corporation sacked him, they gave him the funds to film Vincent, which was a fantastic short, I think it's like 8-10 minutes long, tribute to Vincent Price, a stop motion animation film that's narrated by Vincent Price. It rhymes. If you get a chance to watch Vincent, it's so good. And that's clearly an illustration from Vincent, from his sketches for it. It's such a great film. And he also did a short live action film called Frankenweenie with Disney as well. And you got the illustrations here that was part of the designs for Edward Scissorhands. And there's Jack. These are the illustrations he made for the designs for Batman Returns. So here you've got Catwoman and the Penguin. You can see how those illustrations are so important for the final design for the film. Clearly, the man is a fan of the macabre. And this is just gross, but again, probably a step up from Edward Gorey. But you can see the influence. So, Tim Burton, great illustrator, very dark imagination, dark sense of humour, and a great book here with over 1,000 illustrations, 430 pages, and lots of biographical stuff in there as well about how his career developed. Okay, so I'm going to go to Gahan Wilson. So I think Gahan Wilson has got some level of fame in America because he drew for the New Yorker and he drew for Playboy, and he is known as an illustrator, but certainly in this country I think he's relatively unknown. It's only strange people like me that know about him and collect him. I buy anything that I see of Gahan Wilson. It's really hard to get his books. So I mean, this is the sort of cover and title of his books, even weirder, and then that sort of illustration style. And you can tell the way he draws from a mile off, his really distinctive style of drawing. Something about the way he draws faces as well, you can really tell what it is. I paint what I see. My favourite title of one of his books, And Then We'll Get Him. As I said, they're really difficult to get hold of. If I ever see one of his books, I get very excited about it. And, you know, again, it's that dark sense of humour. What's that, kid? I can't make out what you're trying to say. It's clearly a very dark definition of an eye test. Leave that there for a minute so you can read it. That is very Gahan Wilson. Some of them are just, what? So you've got the dark humour, but you've got just very odd things like this. Oh, hold on. I need to see what it is. So, yeah, ice cream parlour. You can see the caption. It's like, there are lots of cartoons of his with that kind of humour. That is just odd. I love this. I'll read it out. I'll read out the caption. Well, we found out what's been clogging up your drains. Being carried off. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but yeah, I love that. This takes you a while to really for it to sink in. But I love the way it's drawn. He's just so brilliant. And then this was a relatively recent collection that came out. Again, it's got an American price on it, so I bought this as an American import in Brighton, I think it was. The paper itself is really cool. Right, it's framed. This is someone whose bath is taking them away. And he does make references to films sometimes. This is a great one referencing The Wizard of Oz. Some are just disturbing. So there's that one. He hasn't touched the thing for weeks. It's really dark. This is a lovely play on the Ark, Noah's Ark. It's like loads of insects going in the can. Gahan Wilson. Even weirder. I paint what I see. I'll show you a couple of these. Hey fellas, wait for me. Again, this one is just what's he thinking? So the caption for this one is, Harvey, you come down here this instant. I can't get enough of his stuff, and absolutely one of my favourite things, Gahan Wilson's cartoons. Last Illustrator, and I've talked about him before a number of times. Love him to death. Charles Addams. So Charles Addams, famously the creator of the Addams Family, but a fantastic, dark, macabre, eerie, gothic-esque illustrator, cartoonist. Again, appeared in the New Yorker, but has released loads of different books of his own works. And they're not just Addams Family cartoons, but there obviously are some. But some of them are just, like I said with Gahan Wilson, just a bit eerie and kind of just surreal. So you got that one. That's someone, a woman complaining, you never felt that way about me. Again, this is another pretty dark relationship one. Darling, can you step out for a moment? That's a very spiteful woman setting up the packed lunch. Again, he's not painting a very positive picture of relationships here. But that's a collection of relationship cartoons. They're often themed, so there's another one here of Cookbook. So Charles Addams Cookbook. Again, Charles Addams books are very hard to find. This is quite a dry one. Nobody else has complained about flies in the soup. And then one of the first books I had by Charles Addams was the Addams Family album. So this is a great book of just Addams Family cartoons. This is a lovely one. Again, very subtle. This is Morticia saying to Lurch, "Is it anyone we know?" And then, "Suddenly I have a dreadful urge to be merry." There's a Christmas one there. And this one was actually literally transported into the first Addams Family film. So one of the earliest jokes in the first Addams Family film, starring Angelica Houston and Raul Julia, is this cartoon put into live action. So this is them giving the carol singers a bit of a surprise, and this was literally lifted into the first Addams Family film. And typical the way that Charles Addams just reversed expectations. You've got Morticia asking a neighbour, "Can I borrow some cyanide?" So, yeah. Charles Addams. 4 creepy, eerie, gothic, macabre illustrators that have had a huge influence on that kind of artwork and that kind of imagery. Edward Gorey, Tim Burton, Charles Addams and Gahan Wilson. As I said, Edward Gorey is kind of like the big influence on all of them, and I guess it's quite nice to show Tim Burton's artwork style, because you mainly know him as a director. And there we go. Charles Addams, Gahan Wilson. Thanks for watching. I hope that you found it interesting. See you later. Bye.
Picture of what it's like to be